G'day everyone and welcome back to the shed. We have had a little bit of a break from YouTube, not through choice but just through things that have been happening, and it has been a bit challenging for our family for the last few months, and we've had family members that have been ill, hospitalised, things like that. Everyone sort of is recovered or recovering from that, so that's all good news. My dad namely has been seriously ill, like life-threatening sort of ill, and he had emergency surgery, intensive care, the whole thing with that. But a couple of days ago he celebrated his 81st birthday, so that's made us all very happy. And it's Father's Day today here in Australia, and so I've been in there and spent some time with him this morning and wished him a happy Father's Day. Glad to have him around for a bit longer, but he gave me a big bear hug and he hung on pretty tight, so you can tell he's pretty happy to be with us as well. So what we'll do today is just a bit of a quick update around the shed, catch up on that, and then we'll do another video. We'll go and see if we've got an old wreck down the back that'll start up that's been sitting for decades, just for something for a little bit light-hearted and simple. So we've got the old truck cab, and this has really been a low buck project for me, and scrimping and saving to try and make it all work, but it's coming together. I've made this header tank for it. This is a bit of rolled up sheet metal, made two end caps for it. There's a bit of a weld just in from the edge on each side, so I made a couple of dished end panels and welded them on. And mainly price for a new one, over $2,000 Australian for this tank. I spent, I'm guessing, a day on it, so material cost was pretty insignificant. So I would have come in at half of that easily. Glass is in it now, most of the interior's in it. Had a good friend of mine, Graham, he's done all the interior work for me, and unfortunately Graham, being a qualified trimmer, is a handy bloke to know, but he's also got a project that he wants some help with, so it's all going to be a little bit of helping each other out a bit here. So he can do some of my work, I'll do some of his work. So we're at the point now where we can turn the key on, things happen. The low air buzzer comes on and tells me there's no air pressure anywhere, so we know that works. Power window works in the passenger door, crank up window works in the driver's door, but we've got dash all back in it. So if you guys come and have a look in here, poke your head in around there. The inside light comes on when you open the door. Now the truck I'm putting this cab onto, this is not the original cab for the truck, this is a replacement one I bought. This one's 10 years newer than what the truck was. So this one had the grey interior, the original truck had the beige and brown, this piece down here. So I'm trying to sort of keep it period and going back to original. So I've done the trim back as they would have been, copying off the brochure picture. We couldn't get the brown carpet to go around the edge of the bunk, so we've gone with beige there, that'll all work. The brown dash is factory. Some of this dash is pretty ordinary, a few bits of broken plastic. The grey dash that came out of this cab is in better condition, but I've got some paint mixed up now. I've got to go and pick it up from the paint place. I'll paint the other plastics and swap all those over. Yesterday's job was to clean up the sun visors and put them back in. There's an overhead console fits in here, and that's the wiring for that tucked up there. And yeah, but the radio works and things like that, so that's the most important thing you'd need in a truck really, is a good radio, good sound system. So there we go. The air conditioner we've had completely apart down there. New TX valve. The evaporator core's been cleaned out, the heater core's been overhauled, and so that's all new in there, just needs the front cover on there. And yeah, really coming along. So we're not too far off putting it back on the frame, and I'm thinking within the next couple of weeks, but I'll show you a couple of other things I've been working on for it. Part of the upgrade is I'm converting it to have some cab suspension, and it's got a couple of airbags that fit under this bracket. Now this is the original bracket that was on the cab, but I've changed these mounting points and lifted them up a bit. The cab on this truck's been lifted up to go over the top of the engine. It's had a repower over 20 years ago, and they lifted the cab up then, and so all the other cab mounts have been modified, so I've just done this one to match. But I've done another bit of a mod on it. Pressure. Grab a couple of other pieces. There's a bit of a panhard rod, a stabiliser bar, that originally hooks in there like that, and that's what sort of keeps the cab centred as the cab suspension works. Now when they've designed it, they've obviously thought, well, the cab's never going to move very much, but when the air leaks out of them, they leak all the way down. When you hit bumps and things, they will come up a fair way. And because this is such a short bar, over time it breaks this bracket off here, because originally this is just bolted onto this piece here. So I've got a couple of these I've got off various wrecks, but they've all been broken on here and re-welded. The other thing is there's a couple of pivots at the front of the cab on each side, and on these trucks that have got the cab suspension, because this bar's sort of trying to twist the cab all the time, these mounts are always flogged out front and back. And the trucks that don't have the cab suspension, the rubber mounts just last forever, they don't have a problem. So what I'm doing is making the bar a bit longer, so that's going out there. There's another hole in the frame rail on the truck cab itself, and I've got a bolt hole to line up with that. I've got to drill that through and put a metal sleeve in it, so it'll pick up a bolt out here. This little gusset's going to go in here to support it. So that's all going to be super strong there. We'll mount that further out, and then the piece that goes on the frame, because this is upside down, it sort of hangs underneath the back of the cab, I'm going to extend it out by the same amount on the other side. So that will change the arc that this swings into, making it into a much longer arm. So we put that out there. The amount that it drags it side to side is going to change dramatically. So that'll just make it better all round. So that's a little cab mount. Might as well come and have a look at the frame too. Now we're pretty close to put the cab on. The cab sits on these brackets here at the front, one on each side, and that other bracket I showed you goes above this area here, and there's a couple of airbags fit in there to support the cab, and that's the other side of that arm. So that's going to get moved back over there, and once again longer arm's just going to make it ride so much better. This frame's been completely apart. I've taken every bolt out of it, down to bare rails, sandblasted the rails, painted them, they've gone back together. A lot of stuff's been replaced that generally just gets tired over time. All the suspension bushes in the back are new in it. I've replaced every one of these nylon hoses. There's still a few old ones left that are going to get changed, and they're just there for pattern purposes at the moment. But with air brakes, you blow a hose, you've got nothing. You've sort of got to rely on all that stuff working properly. There's a valve here. I've got a new one to go in here. That's for the cab suspension. So it's got a little linkage that hooks to the cab. So when the cab comes down, it opens the valve to put more air into it. When the cab goes up, it'll dump some of the air out of it. So that's that little valve there, and that's the linkage that makes that work. Now, it's got a... You barked your shin, didn't you?
How can you tell, Rob?
The noise you made.
Could have got the cobwebs off it for me.
Yeah, I could have done. I could have polished it as well, but I didn't.
Just so you know, that's not going in the video.
It's got a 12.7 Series 60 in it. This one's a DDEC 3 engine, if that means anything to you guys. Most people won't be aware of it, but DDEC is Detroit Diesel Electronic Control. So originally they brought out what they called DDEC, and they put electronics on their engines, and then they had DDEC 1, DDEC 2, DDEC 3, and so on. This one, the engine is a DDEC 3, but it's got a DDEC 2 computer on it, which sounds weird, but I'll get to that. And it's got a mismatch of injectors. It's got 11 litre injectors in it instead of 12.7s. Now, it's an odd-bod combination that was in it when I bought it, but it makes horsepower. This thing seriously makes horsepower. It's over 500 horsepower. I was working with a company years ago that were into their Max. The whole fleet was Max, and they bought a V8 Superliner with a 510 full noise V8 in it. And the bloke that owned the company just said one day, he said, "You might think your truck goes hard, but put it next to that 510, mate, you're just not in the race." So as it happened, a few months later, the 510 and I were carrying identical loads on the only hill out of Perth, and I was in front, and I thought, well, I'm going to give it the best shot I've got to stay ahead of this V8, and got to the top of the hill and pulled up in the parking bay and waited 10 minutes for the Mac to climb the hill. And I thought, old 60 doesn't do too bad, you know. It does overfuel a little bit if you leave it idling. It's got a little bit of fuel stain around the exhaust manifolds here. It's been off the road for 11 years, so basically every time it's been running, and it hasn't been running for about 4 years now, you'd start it up, you'd move it around the yard and shut it off. So it tends to fuel up a bit doing that. And so it'll be an interesting one when we actually fire this up. We'll video it because it's going to blow a heap of white smoke out of it. The fuel in diesels will sit in the combustion chambers. Now, if you're a petrol engine guy, that sounds weird, but turn everything upside down. A diesel motor's got a flat cylinder head with the valves all flush and flat in there. The combustion chamber is a hollow in the top of the piston. So if you get excess fuel, and excess fuel won't burn because when it ignites it'll burn the air, anything that's left over doesn't burn, it just stays in there. So then once you start to work it, the fuel will burn off and it'll make white smoke. Once we've got it up and running again, we'll get it on the road. The first road she's just going to have a trail of white smoke behind it. I just know that from experience. It's had a couple of dripping injectors that I've changed in it too, so that was part of the problem as well. But it'll make a pretty good video. We'll fire it up. There'll be a cloud of smoke come out of it and we'll get it for a run up the road and burn the extra fuel off it. So that should be fun. So yeah, so we're nearly ready to go. All new power steering hoses, new radiator hoses, things like that have gone onto it, just in an effort to make it super reliable once it's back on the road. I'm at the stage now where I've got these piles of bolts. Now this pile of bolts here came out of this cab, but in the process of rebuilding this cab I put a lot of new bolts in it, but I've also used parts out of the old cab, so I knew there was going to be leftovers. But even myself, I should take more time taking things apart to put individual bolts for a specific thing into a bag and label it, because you do spend a lot of time just looking for, I need 3 of these. Hang on, there's one. Oh, there's another one. You're going to spend a heap of time doing that. So at this point in time in the shed, I've got a pile of bolts here out of a cab, pile of bolts there out of a cab. Just by Deb's feet, we have got a box of bolts just out of the frame and another one hiding over there. So the more time we put into actually identifying bolts, the easier the rebuild process will be.
So you're saying you failed?
Just a little. No, it's just a time thing. But the things we can do to make the job easier is always just going to be time well spent. Over here, I've got my Dodgy Dodge project. This is a 1925 Dodge, Daryl and Susie's car. And I'm just about ready to blast the frame. And I've been doing little jobs on it this week, fixing up bolt threads that were broken. I've had various brackets off. We decided for the sake of cost to bolt the brackets back in instead of re-riveting them. Rivets are very hard to get in Australia these days. Pretty much got to import them. Most rivet manufacturers want minimum order quantities. The people that sell individuals just want stupid money for 5 or 6 of one size. And because we were looking at a heap of different sizes here for this job, we just went with bolts. I have cheated in a couple of spots though. You will find that rivets will be in between sizes, and particularly where you've got a job like this where this is a high stress loading on this spring hanger. The bolt hole size was around about 10 millimetres, which sounds weird in an Imperial vehicle, but it'll work out to an Imperial size. But when you squash a rivet, it swells in the middle, so it will lock everything in place. So the size worked out to be basically halfway between 3/8 and 7/16. So I tapped the spring hanger brackets through there to 7/16, which put a good thread in there, and then I drilled the holes in the frame and I've screwed the bolt through, tightened it into the bracket and then put the lock nut on there so it'll never move. These two are up the other way because I need the spring clearance for the eye of the spring to clear that. This is the steering box mount. It was the same deal, but what I've wound up doing on this was welding up the holes and then re-drilling them to the 3/8 size and just putting 3/8 bolts in there. And I've got countersunk bolts in the top here because we've got splash apron will fit straight over the top of that. And I've used these button head ones to get sort of similar to a rivet head. We could even just wipe a bit of urethane into the heads before we paint it, and that'd make it look closer, but it's never going to be a Pebble Beach car, but we want it nice anyway. And just before we go on this video, I'll just show you something I'm doing with the steering box. Now we've got a steering box that's nearly 100 years old, and it's done a bit of work. But the really cool thing about a Dodge is it's got a full circle sector gear. So the arm can go on in 4 positions. That means you can wear out 4 positions on this gear. So it's only a matter of turning it, shifting the pitman arm on there, readjusting the steering box, and you've got another patch to wear out. Sadly, the worm doesn't have that feature. I'll get this out of here. So it's got a thrust bearing. The end of the housing is bushed, and there's a thrust bearing fits there, and it's bushed in this nut on the top of it. So when you actually steer it, the worm's going to want to either walk forwards and backwards all the time, but it's also going to want to push away from the sector all the time. So we've got quite a lot of wear on the shaft down here. There's a bit of a shoulder on that side where she's coming up against it. And the same thing in here, there's a lot of wear where the bushes have run on it. And there's a spot there, we can actually see that. It's a pretty good step in there where it's worn out. So that'll be the straight ahead position, I'd say, with it sitting about there. And every time you go to turn, it wants to lift that off the sector and wreck it like that. So what I've worked out that I can do is I can take the thrust bearings out, take the bushes out, machine this nut off and make an adapter to press into the nut. And I can put a tapered bearing here. We can machine the shaft down, take the bottom bush out and make an adapter to fit in there and put a tapered bearing in there. And we'll have 2 tapered bearings. We'll do the job of 2 bushes and 2 thrust bearings. Now, the bushes have quite a bit of load on the shaft when they're turning, so it makes the steering heavy. So this conversion is going to make the steering lighter, but it will also take away the wearing area on the shaft, so the shaft will last forever. So we'll have to get a new shaft made because this one's so bad, but it's a 13/16 shaft size. I found a little bearing that's got a 13/16 size there. The OD is too big to put down here in the housing, but I found a smaller one that'll fit in down there, and we've just got to machine the shaft down a bit to make it a bit smaller on that side. And because the gear only just keys onto the shaft anyway, we can get a new shaft made very easily. So that's an exciting thing. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to driving it because it will drive a lot nicer with it. And because we've got this nut here, we can actually adjust any wear out of it by adjusting the nut there. So it'll be a win-win-win for it. It'll last forever. So there's a little bit of a catch-up, guys. Great to have you back. We'll talk to you soon.